can we have you sign right here on the headlamp, the prime spot? We're gonna have you sign right here. That's the prime spot.
All right.
How is everybody? Nice. Okay. And done.
She put a little smiley face underneath her name, guys.
I did. How is everybody? Wow. Hello. Love the braids.
I'm over here. I won't sit on your lap there. Sorry.
I mean, it's fine.
All right.
This is so exciting. Welcome to Salt Lake City.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be here.
And you're all excited that she's here, right? So I have to tell you that I love when I get to do this job. And when they told me that I had the honor of doing your panel, I had homework to do, which means that for the last week and a half, I've been watching Rain again. And I have to say, I've been walking through the house with such power, right?
Nice.
Right? Have you guys been watching it again? Like, you just binge it again and again, and you see her character, Catherine, and you're like, yeah, you're not gonna tell me what to do today, and then you go and do the laundry, and then it's fine, but. So, I know who everyone wants to talk about, and it's the character that we grew up with. And it's the character that we all felt like we had this part in this character. You were a part of our lives every single day, and that's Anne.
Nice.
Now, you were a kid when you got this role. Tell me a little bit about how you got this role.
I was doing another film up in Canada called Hockey Night. Thank you, some die-hard core fans here. They know Hockey Night, which was about a girl who was the only girl. She was a girl goalie on the boys hockey team, the only girl. So they were doing a big casting session for Anne, and I was one of the first people that came through the door to audition for Anne. And then they kept looking. So they saw about 3,000 girls, and they went across the country, and they still were looking, and I got another chance, so I went around again, and I got back in that door, and the rest is history.
So you were talking about the role in the hockey show, and then we're talking about Anne, and then I want to bring in Catherine. You kind of have this ongoing character that you pick that is women that are in roles that don't want to be in those roles, women that, or females that have a voice, like a girl hockey player. And she didn't want to be quiet at all, which made me happy as a kid, because I didn't want to be quiet. Like, I didn't want to be told, you know, go sit over here, you know, be nice, you know, be quiet. And then, of course, in Rain with Catherine, she ran that show. Everybody thought it was the men, but she ran that show. So, I mean, obviously it was probably accidental that or was it? Did you think about, okay, these are kind of strong female characters, and I love that?
I just felt lucky because I loved playing them. And I think when you're young too and you start out, they're just fantastic characters. And I think we start to realize, and I think this is changing, which is fantastic. We don't define it as something that's male or female. They're just these great character traits. And then, so when I started out, I was very lucky. I played a lot of strong characters that were female. And then I realized, oh, they're not all like that, these roles. They are fewer and farther between. And so, but once you get a taste for being a driving, strong number one character, it's hard to not want to have more. That's what happens.
The casting,
right?
The casting for Anne of Green Gables was fantastic. How was it to be on the set as a kid with all these other kids, but you were all phenomenal actors?
You know, it was such a fantastic experience. I was thinking, you know, this was sort of, we shot Anne on 16 millimeter film in Canada. Our budget was very low. It was very, compared to most shows now, for sure. And we just had an incredible spirit to go out and to do this. We had, the script was written by a guy, the first one by a man named Joe Wiesenfeld, and along with Kevin Sullivan, and it was really just very true to the story. And then we had these phenomenal players. We had Colleen Dewhurst and Richard Farnsworth. So, I mean, and Colleen was an old broad of the theater, you know. She was a tough, seasoned, and tough, I don't mean mean at all. I just mean someone who'd been around. And she was a seasoned actor who just made being on set so much fun.
What was your favorite thing about playing Anne? At that age, you obviously probably didn't realize how much of an impact you were going to have on so many people's lives. So you're there, you're on set, this is kind of your life. What were your favorite moments?
Well, a lot of them was actually just that I got to be the driving force of the story. And that's what comes back to what I wasn't the appendage. I wasn't the girlfriend of, or the sister of, or I had been, and I think, you know, I did a film, Silver Bullet, and I had done that before I did Anne, and which was a lot of fun. And it's funny, but Jane is the sister of the lead, of Marty, the young boy. So there's a lot of that, especially, there was a lot of that, and still is. We have a way to go, where you are you're defining somebody else's story. So all of a sudden, you are the story, and that is a fantastic thing to be able to express.
What was great about Anne of Green Gables is when I was younger, I didn't have to go very far to find it. It was very accessible in everyone's households. How many of you guys remember watching it after school? And they're raising their hands like they are in school. You can cheer in here. You can totally cheer and clap. But it was so accessible. I remember just going home and watching it over and over again, and I never got tired of it.
Well, then let's do a plug for PBS. Because Anne of Green Gables was a co-production between the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and PBS, both of which are funded governmentally and supported. And we would not have made that program otherwise. So, as they try to cut funding for those programs and those stations, I just am a big believer that sometimes incredible things comes out of that. And Anne of Green Gables was one of those.
And that's what's great, is every year, at least one time, you and your kids can actually watch it. I've watched it with my daughter several years because PBS uses it to bring in funds, which is so fantastic. Such a great story. How many of you read the books before you saw the movie or the show? How many of you saw the show first and then read the books? It's not wrong either way, but it's fantastic that it goes across the board.
Absolutely, and I think it's also ultimately such a great testament to Lucy Maud Montgomery, who was writing at a time when she grew up in Prince Edward Island, very strong community, but she was definitely, by her gender, a second-class citizen. So she had to fight for her education. In fact, both her grandfathers were very powerful men, one in Parliament and one in the community, and it was her grandmother who fought to get her post-secondary education. And in order to have it, she, like most women at the time, you were only going to get a university education if you were going to be a teacher. So you had to be put in a lot of hours of teaching, and she was put into very adverse and difficult positions. And even though in school she got the highest grades, she was not awarded what her male counterparts were. So all of that was her experience, and when she wrote Anne, at an actually very happy time in her life, she was filled with a lot of gratitude for the community and elements that she had grown up in, but also remembered and recognized that as a little girl she felt somewhat isolated too, because she had all this creativity and this voice, and the world hadn't caught up yet with acknowledging her.
We would love to get your questions as well. If you guys have questions, there's a microphone right up here. I won't take up the whole time because I'm just as excited as you are.
Okay. Hi, I'm Trisha, and I wanted to ask you a about filming Anne of Green Gables. First, you lost Richard after the first filming, and then Colleen, and then Jonathan. And I can't imagine what that's like, working with them and then losing them. But I wanted to know if there was anyone that you still keep in touch with, that you filmed part of that world with and that you were so close to. Who else do you keep in touch with?
Well, you know what's funny? Certainly Skylar, who plays Diana Barry. I'm in touch with Skylar. And a lot of the crew members, too. People that did makeup and hair on the show. In fact, Linda Preston, who was the makeup artist on Anne of Avonlea, the second miniseries, was the makeup artist on Rain. As was Jenny Arbor, who did the hair on, she was one of the hair people on Avonlea, did the incredible, she was the key hair woman on Rain. So that was a lot of fun.
That was really good hair.
It was incredible hair on Rain. Let's give it up for hair on Rain.
I was watching one of the episodes yesterday before the wedding. And I'm like, I cut all my hair off. I can't do all the little things that they did.
I know, but your hair looks fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody. It's looking great.
Thank you. Wow. Oh my gosh.
Hi, Megan. I'm Megan.
Hello.
Hi. So my question is, and I'm so grateful, you have broken into directing. We need more women directors in this world, so I'm very happy to see that you've broken into it. What types of stories are you attracted to as a director, or would you like to be able to tell?
It's really fun for me. It's a newer world for me. So I started directing on Rain, which was fantastic because that was such a delicious romp into all kinds of naughtiness and everything. You know, it was comic, it was tragic, it was absurd, it was historical fantasy. We know, so it was a lot of fun. And then I've done anything from sort of murder mysteries to I've directed a lot on a show called Heartland, which is a really beautiful show to work on too. We do it in Alberta, and there's a lot of horses and animals. It's a family drama too. So I often love family politics, family dynamics. I also love a good comedy. I kind of like it all, to be honest, and that's the actor in me too, that loves. I love a good story.
I wanted to ask, you have done several productions where you have gotten to wear some really fabulous period costumes. And I was wondering if you had ever had any costume mishaps or things that you particularly didn't enjoy wearing.
Well, at the end of Anne of Avonlea, the second miniseries, which took us 3 months to do, I had a corset, so I had been getting into that corset. And at one point, we were shooting 12 to 14 hours a day, and they started to want to only take a half-hour lunch. They didn't want me to get out of the corset at lunch. Sometimes I did anyway. But at the end of that show, I took that corset off, and it was, I think we were in November now, there was snow on the ground. We built a bonfire, I doused it in kerosene, and I burnt that corset. Not a comfortable thing to wear every day, let me tell you. Mishap for the corset, perhaps, not for me.
Hello. Hello. I was in high school when the movie came out, and we didn't have the internet then, so there were like stories told about.
Children, there was a time when there was
a time before Google?
Interweb.
And people used to tell a story about how you prepared for the audition in contrast to how your co-star prepared. And is that a story, and will you share it?
Now, I don't know what the story is about the co-star. Are you talking about Jonathan? Yeah. Oh, you'll have to tell me that story. All right, you start with his story, and then you tell me his, and I'll tell you mine.
And everything on the internet's true, by the way.
Well, this is what they told me in high school. Right. That a friend said, hey, audition for this. So he went to the tube and got some pictures in the thing in the tube and turned them in.
Nice. He probably did, because Jonathan was very, very talented, very funny, incredible young man. I was going to high school in Los Angeles. I was a modern, at the time contemporary teenager, and trying to figure out how to play Anne at a certain time. I always think Anne is Anne is not cynical, and it's or sarcastic. She's ironic, but she's not. So it was a different time. So I remembered I had to write a lot of things. I think, I am this. I wrote statements, I remember, and I kind of put them on my wall to look at them, to think a different way, so that when I went in and auditioned again, I would bring a different quality, not just myself, to it. So that's true.
Thank you.
I wanted to build on her, like her.
Come closer to the mic.
Like her question, I was in high school when the movie came out, and I think to a lot of girls, well, now women, our age, Jonathan was Gilbert. He really epitomized him. And I was just curious if you had any funny stories about him.
Jonathan was so fun. He had an incredibly wicked sense of humor. Very bright young man, very funny. He went on to do a lot of comedy. He had a comedy troupe, I believe, called Skippy's Rangers that he did afterwards. And I just remember he would make me laugh. I mean, it was all very fast and furious when we made that, and it was a lot of material we were producing in a very short amount of time. But he had such a good nature, such a good spirited person, a lot of fun. I remember us just laughing about how to spell chrysanthemum out in the field, but him picking up different flowers, that none of which were chrysanthemums, but he'd be like, chrysanthemum? So he just, and when I see him, I always have a moment. It just kind of takes my breath away. It's very sad that he's no longer with us.
Did he realize that a lot of women saw him as Gilbert, and was he okay with it?
Okay, let's get down. What did you really think about Gilbert? I hear that guy. We're gonna fight over Gilbert now. I can see what's gonna happen. He was great. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, so I have a question. I loved Anne of Avonlea. I loved when you played Catherine. Anne is such a virtuous, wholesome woman. Catherine is not. What were the things you liked most about playing complete opposite characters?
Well, I'm going to qualify that because I don't think of Anne completely that way. I think that Anne had a temper, and Anne had an ability to be, from a place of survival, a sense of being able to manipulate situations from her intelligence and their circumstances. So sometimes when people think of Anne as wholesome, I think that what made Anne, I mean, she takes a slate and she smashes it over someone's head. So what's your idea of wholesome? Wait a minute. So I always think that that was the little bit of the difference between someone like Anne and someone like Pollyanna, like as a character, because Anne had a lot of she had character defects that Lucy Maud was allowing a young girl to have, which they were not culturally allowed to have. Having said that, then yes, I loved Catherine. Cut to years later, different time. Different time for me. I'm a mother. I've gone through different experiences in my life. So again, to be able to play someone who's multifaceted and someone who's not I mean, yes, she did wicked things. Yes, okay, I poisoned a few people in rain. I know. I took a head off here or there, but I was allowed to. It was those times, my dear. But who doesn't want to do that every now and then? You know what I mean?
One of my favorite lines, and I started watching the first season over, is when you're talking to Nostradamus and you're like, I'm just gonna have your head removed. But that's like with the best, I mean, I'm saying it with the best possible love.
Absolutely.
And he's just looking at you like, I'm really afraid.
She was such a great character. There was a lot of humor in her.
I love it because you had a lot of great lines, But there's a lot of scenes that you have where you didn't have to say anything, and we knew you were up to something.
Yeah, that's me, sneaky. Hello.
Hi. Did you get to keep anything from the set of Anne of Green Gables?
Yes. I kept some of the wardrobe. I have pieces of the wardrobe from all of the different miniseries, different years. A blouse here and there. I used to have a pair of shoes that I wore. Somewhere I have Anne's wedding dress. I know.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody. And then and on Rain, then the costume designer let me take a few pieces. Don't know where I'll ever be able to wear them. Just myself wandering around.
You just wear them
the
on
house.
Tuesdays. Just on Tuesdays.
Because they were spectacular.
Okay, so you gave us a little insight of Jonathan. Do you have any touching moments with Colleen and Richard that you're willing to share?
You know, Colleen was just the greatest, set a great example for me as a young actress, because she was a working actor. She was professional, she was good-spirited, good-natured, she was about doing the work, she kept people laughing, so she contributed to a good environment on set. When you work in the film and television industry, there's a lot of people behind the camera that make a huge contribution to what ends up on the camera, and we have no idea as an audience. And that's when it's really at its best. We don't want to know, but there's so many people that are holding that light, moving that flag, bringing you that prop, pushing that camera, focusing that camera, getting the sound. It's a communal thing. So I was very lucky in both Anne of Green Gables and the sequel, because I got to work with Dame Wendy Hiller, who was in the sequel. This is a Dame Wendy Hiller. She worked with Shaw on plays. She did the original Eliza Doolittle, and she's in the film doing that. And these women, and Richard as well, they didn't hide in their trailers or not want to come to set because they didn't feel like it, or they were working people that did their work, and that was a great discipline and something for me to see, the grace in that.
Hi, I just hopefully really quickly wanted to thank you for playing a really wonderfully imagined and written literary character so well that so many of us like me just loved revisiting again and again and again from childhood up, and for coming to Salt Lake, which a lot of stars might not want to do.
I love it, thank you.
And I'd be curious to hear how many people here were inspired to make pilgrimages to Prince Edward Island like I did, to see Lucy Maud Montgomery's home and the places where the films were taking place. My question is,
yes.
Thank you, Sarah, for indulging me. I was just curious, as much as I love the original series of movies, had you happened to see any of the new Netflix and with an E, and if you had, what you thought about it?
You know what? I hadn't seen much of it, but I did the other night. I was just finished directing a couple episodes of a new Hallmark series, and I was up in Northern Ontario, and I turned the television on, and I watched an episode of Anne with an E, which I thought was really wonderful, and I'll tell you why I think that it's really speaks to the power of this character. Like many characters that are often created in plays, they're open for interpretation. They're iconic roles, so they often get the brush or the input of the time that they're done. Anne with an E is an ongoing series, which Anne of Green Gables was not. It was a mini series based on those specific books. So Anne with an E has a much There's many more episodes. They take chapters and create things and do different, expose us to different worlds. And I think what's really interesting for this generation, and everything that this younger generation has to face, they're trying to take these characters and they are adding contemporary elements, I think, in a way, to help, whether it's issues of bullying or whether it's issues of gender identification, whether it's issues of racism, whether it's issues of sexuality. The truth is that that is the world that our young people are very much a part of, and they're using that platform to reach out across and to let people know that they see them. And I think that's important. So it is different. I think what was beautiful about what we did, I think it was very true to the book. And the book also talked about, there's bullying in ours. There's someone who's, the whole premise of Anne is someone, because of her class and her gender, has little to no value. And through her spirit and her determination and the love of two people who turn around and open up a new way to see her, change is huge and it's possible. And I think that is what Lucy Maud Montgomery was talking about, and how critical community is. It can make the difference between, the tribe can make the difference between somebody succeeding in life and having a place and somebody being left behind. So all those stories, that still exists today. We just have a different set of circumstances and battles which people are up against. Does that make sense? That's long answer.
Fantastic answer.
Hi Megan, my name is Chelsea. Now, for like the past couple Sundays, my family and I have been binge watching Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea. Fortunately, I had to come here and we weren't able to get to the continuing story, which is a big bummer because that's my favorite one. But anyway, to my question, we've kind of been on this high, and I've always been wondering, what was your favorite scene to shoot with Jonathan, and can you like describe like what happened and the process of that scene?
Oh, there's so many. I know. You know what? Not that anyone's allowed to do this, but it feels good to take a slate and just... It was a breakaway slate, so it wasn't really slate, because that would have hurt. But he was still shocked, which you can see on his face. It's that sort of thing, you're like, gosh, when you really feel angry, and you just, and you're not supposed to. So he was a lot of fun in that. And I also loved when the boat sank and I'm clinging to the... And he comes along like, really? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm just hanging here in the water on a pier. And so he was so much fun to work with.
Fishing for lake trout.
Exactly. Exactly.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hey, Mama Earp.
Hello.
So, apparently, my question is about Winona Earp, and just if you had any fun story or a fun experience with the cast.
Oh my God, they're outrageous, that cast. It was freezing back in Calgary, in Alberta, Calgary, and that scene with where Melanie's hanging off the side of a cliff in this skimpy, feathery, whatever the hell she'd been wearing, and she didn't want to do it in her jacket. It was minus 26 degrees Celsius. And all of us, just going like, who are these crazy people? This show is so wild. I had so much fun with all of them. And Dominique is just a really beautiful soul. So, and Doc's pretty cute too, I gotta say. So I think maybe the bar fight, and then, this is gonna be terrible, punching him. It was really great. Because that's the kind of stuff that, usually that's the kind of iconic stuff that guys have got to do in film and roles forever. They get to do the drunken this and the brawl at the this and it's just kind of like guys being guys, So, so we got to do that too. It was fun. Hello.
So I know that you also have a theater career, which is probably not talked about as much. As a theater major, I remember I kept my theater book because your picture was in it.
Oh,
so
wow.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about your theater experiences and what your favorite one was.
Wow. I loved playing Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. It's a pretty extraordinary play to have been for 3 hours of your life to fall in love and live for love and then die for love in the course of 3 hours with poetry, and drive the action too. And on such a beautiful stage, the Stratford Festival. I loved that. I was very fortunate to, one of my first plays I did with my mother and my sister was a play called Effective Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. And that was a pretty incredible experience because my father's passed now and my mom is still with me. They are both performers. So I grew up watching them on the stage. So to me that was where you really had to test your mettle. And then I did a play, I got to play by Margaret Atwood called The Penelopead, which is Penelope's point of view of the Odyssey. It's told from her perspective. Hello, I did say it was Margaret Atwood, so yes. And that is an incredible play based on, she took the 2 sentences of the Odyssey, which were the last when Odysseus comes home after everything, and basically kills all the suitors and then kills the 12 maids. So Margaret, in her incredible exploration of taking stories and looking at them in another viewpoint, did that. And then I got to direct that play. So I got to play the role in one production, and then I got to direct it, and that was pretty special.
We have 4 minutes, so I think we could do one more.
Anne is such a strong character, and many of us have shaped our lives and our personalities that were already like hers. They kind of gave us a role model or a character to follow. Is there a character in your experiences or just in literature or movies that you like to, or that you feel a kindred spirit to? I'm so sorry.
I follow that. I always feel really lucky. I always think that at different stages in my life, I've been very graced by roles coming in that kind of reflected where I was at or gave me an opportunity to learn something new about myself and the world. So I think at its best, the arts provides that for us, and whether that art can be, doesn't always apply to what we do, that is for sure. But sometimes just the fun of being able to shed your skin and be someone else and have to see something from a different perspective. So definitely Anne was incredible. One of the first things I did when I was very young was a short film, and it won an Academy Award for Best Film based on an Alice Munro short story called Boys and Girls. And so that was a really powerful little experience, very strange, but that kind of, I loved that. And then I loved Anne, obviously. Anne will always have my heart. And then I loved Juliet, and I loved Catherine. So I don't have one. I'm a chameleon.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor having you here. Has she been wonderful? Thank you so much for coming to Salt Lake and coming to FanX. And you're going to be here for a while. You can meet people. And let's hear it for her one more time, everybody.
One more time, guys. Give me a huge round of applause for Megan Bubbles! phones, pull out your phones and turn on the flashes. We'll light it up like a sea of stars. There it is. Ready? On the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Well, that looked good.